So, I don't know if you follow the news much, but, every time I turn on the news, apparently, according to some of the news that's out there, the values of good, God-fearing white men is under attack. If you ask the official mascot of white man, once he's gotten past the protest and shown up at Fox News, Tucker Carlson, the radical left is trying to replace those good God-fearing white folk by opening the borders and letting in the foreigners. By the way, that's code word for colored people, who tend to vote more liberal, just to rig elections. It's ridiculous, I know. But should it be? But I'll get back to that in a second. One thing is clear. White men are really angry right now. Why are they so angry? Last week, Reverend Christine shared with us that the top 1% of the world's population now owns around half of the world's wealth. Looking specifically in the U.S., the top 10% of families in the U.S. own 76% of the wealth. The next 40% of U.S. families own 22%. The bottom 50% of families in the U.S. own just 1% of the wealth. That's over 63 million families. 63 million families who are struggling every day to figure out how to pay the bills. And yes, due to a history of prejudicial practices, this despairingly affects people of color more than white families. But looking at the statistics, 40% of white families are in that bottom 50%. So more and more white families are finding themselves to be in the group of have-nots. And that makes for a lot of angry white men feeling powerless. And they got to have somebody to blame. It's got to be somebody's fault. So whose fault is it? And this is where our friend Tucker and his buddies come in. They can't blame the obscenely wealthy. After all, that's just capitalism at work, right? And we learned last week that the opposite of free market capitalism sounds an awful lot like communism. Ooh. Besides, Tucker and his buddies certainly don't want to upset the ones that are paying the bills. So that brings us to these liberal conspiracies, stolen elections, the deep state, and yes, replacement theory, replacing current electorate with an influx of liberal-minded foreigners. Sounds absolutely ridiculous, doesn't it? But is it? The fact is, demographics are changing. The power of those angry white men is decreasing. In the 1950 census, time when we can all agree white men had it pretty good, 87.5% of the U.S. population was non-Hispanic white. By 2000, the number was down to 69.1%. 2010, 63.7%. And in the 2020 census, the percentage of non-Hispanic whites had dropped to 57.8%. And that's not just, to be clear, that's not just a drop in total number of white people. The number of non-Hispanic whites in the U.S. went up 8 million people between 2000 and 2020. But the percentage of the total population dropped by almost 6%. Apparently the white population is being diminished by a greater increase in minorities, many of whom are immigrants. Tucker's right. Replacement theory is real. But you know what? That's a good thing. The more diverse this country is, the more equally all groups are represented, the more it can well represent all people and truly be the bastion of democracy for the world that it has claimed to represent all these years. So those old white men, they've got a reason to be scared. Their position of privilege is no longer guaranteed. And if you want to know how scary that is to them, well, I had to work through the process of understanding that there's nothing more special about me than anyone else in the world. And that was pretty traumatic for me. I mean, I grew up in the 1980s, people. No one had to tell me I was better than a minority or immigrant. That was just understood. I grew up with that really insidious racism of unspoken truths. I was better because I had a mom and a dad. There were no gangbangers or crackheads running through my neighborhood. I truly believed growing up that all minority neighborhoods were like that and had those problems. And so many still think that way today. They believe their lives will be worse because of all those minority problems are going to spill into their world. So those old white men are scared, and they are fighting back. They're not going to give up their position of privilege willingly. What are they doing to fight back? They're rigging the system. Advanced computer systems mean gerrymandering can be done with greater precision. They're passing restrictive voting laws that disproportionately affect minorities and hourly wage workers, reducing the number of polling places in urban neighborhoods, stacking the courts with conservative judges, and not just the Supreme Court, but up and down the federal court system. Those old white men have really found a way to game the system. So with everything stacked up against us, against real progressive change, what can we do? I don't know about you, but it kind of makes me want to just throw up my hands, watch some John Oliver while crying into a tub of ice cream. Don't give up. That's what they want. And as John Oliver would say, luckily, there's something you can do. Number one, vote. If they're going to try to make our votes count less, then we all have to show up and vote for change. Vote in every election, not just federal, but local and state elections as well. Even in a lost election, a vote is a statement that the winner hears. The closer the election, the louder the noise that vote makes. And there are plenty of other ways to make your voice heard. Write or call your congressman, senators, state representatives, even the governor, and tell them what is important to you. Congressional staffers have said that a phone call explaining what a particular piece of legislation or a policy means to you is highly effective. And if there is a high volume of calls on one topic, it encourages the legislature to prioritize that issue. It is powerful because the vast majority of citizens will never take the time to call an elected official. And, this is the part I really like, it only takes a couple minutes to do. So if you want to call a certain senator from Arizona, I don't know, mention how the filibuster is a tool being used to obstruct the voices of her constituents and is stained with the history of blocking the passage of multiple civil rights acts and is a single thing stopping critically important legislations like the 2 Voting Rights Acts, abortion protection, and civil rights that not only restores the protections that have been whittled away over time, but also extends badly needed protections to members of the LGBTQ plus community. And does she really want her name to forever be aligned with the likes of Strom Thurmond? then you just pop on to the website, senate.gov, find the senator's info, give her a call. That easy. Got a little more time to invest? Then volunteer to support a campaign. Again, at whatever level of government, there just happens to be a critically important Senate race in Arizona that you can get involved with. But there are also local elections that you can make a difference supporting. Whether it's posting signs, knocking on doors, making phone calls, or sending emails, there is a way that you can get involved and support a campaign or support a candidate that you believe in. Not willing to wait on the government to act? Get out there and protest. Are you as angry as I am about the continued lack of action by the government on perfectly reasonable gun control measures? Join the march on the Capitol next Saturday. Got a bad knee like me and not certain that you can march? They need volunteers to hand out water and work petition tables too. And maybe you're having one of those days like I sometimes do. You're completely overwhelmed by it all. And all you can manage is John Oliver and some cookies and cream. I'm here to tell you that's okay too. We are all going to have those days. It is very easy to feel defeated. That's okay. Take care of yourself physically and spiritually. And when you're ready, find that one thing that you are passionate about and find a way to make a difference, even if it's in the tiniest way. Heck, sometimes I tear the stupid little plastic windows out of those spam envelopes just so I can throw away the envelope so I can recycle a little more, just so I can say to myself, I did something good today. Sometimes that's enough. It's a hard road we travel today. And the white men in power are not going to relinquish their control easily. They're going to continue to try everything they can to resist the change that is coming. But that change is coming. Soon, I will be a statistical minority, as will all the white men like me. Despite all the efforts to stop us, we have the ability to make change, and change we will make. Keep fighting for tomorrow, the tomorrow you want. The old white men are angry, and they are scared, and that is a good thing. Thank you.